Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, welcome to the Eagle Talk Show. Bienvenido al Show de las Águilas. And now, please stand and welcome your host, Mycah Arellano.
Hello! Bienvenidos al Show de las Águilas. Welcome to the Eagle Talk Show. I just want to thank our volunteers this morning. I was driving, and wonderful volunteers that just, did y'all like the coffee and bagels and all that? And so, have a seat.
Thank you.
Our show today focused on immigration reform, the first episode. Se va a enfocar el show primero, los 30 minutos, se va a enfocar de la reforma migrativa del gobierno, las leyes que se van a explicar de hoy. Pero usted sabe que el show se hizo para darle información a nuestros padres, la educación y con mucho amor y dar los servicios que puede aprender los padres para la educación de sus hijos. Our show was created to empower parents about the engagement role that is very important for that child's higher education, and also to learn the resources that are there for our students, for your child's education. And as we know, we start the show by celebrating. So if you can stand up with me, and the show starts with a little bit of music with Mr. DJ. Mr. DJ, over there. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Un asiento. How about that? Gives you energy, right? I want to thank you just being here today. It's an interesting topic that we're having today with the Eagle Talk Show. Es un tema muy importante para ustedes para aprender qué está pasando en los Estados Unidos. I just welcome my guests, two guests. I have three guests here. Paul Parson es un abogado que les va a decir a nosotros la información que está pasando con el sistema de migración. And then we have Claudia Santa Maria, that's part of the school district, but also she's going to talk about a story, how what empowered her to come, her family, being immigrants. And then we have Juan Beltran that we have here, that is going to be here with us, talk about, he was engaged, he was a student, actually, with us in the school district. And he pursued his career, and I believe it was Galindo school that he started from there. So anyone from Galindo, thank you for being here. And I know we have guests from Bastrop, so thank you for being here today. Austin, we're really rocking today. So Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
Dime qué está pasando con el gobierno contra la reforma migrativa.
El año pasado, en junio, el Senado pasó una reforma grande, pero fue después a la Casa de Representativos y ellos no han hecho nada. Ojalá que nos van a ofrecer este año o el año que entra la gran reforma migratoria que necesitamos, because most people don't have a remedy. That's the problem. If someone came without papers and they're working here unlawfully, unless they can find some exception, something unusual, the vast majority, they just don't have a path to get a work permit and eventually a green card and citizenship.
So what's the process right now in the United States of the Supreme Court or the courts?
Well, right now the courts aren't doing much. They just listen sometimes to appeals of certain types of cases. But the biggest thing that happened last year in immigration was deferred action for childhood arrivals. Si padres llevaron a sus hijos aquí como muy joven, antes del año de 16 años de edad, y estuvieron aquí en junio del año 2012, cuando el presidente anunció acción diferida para jóvenes. Pueden sacar un permiso de 2 años. Es muy importante.
So on June 2012, Obama either it's a policy, what is it for we call it that as defer, DACA, what we call it, right?
Right. It's an executive action. It wasn't passed by Congress, but the president decided, look, we're going to focus, if we're going to deport people, we're going to try to focus on criminals that probably need to be deported, but on children that had no say in coming here, that they should be allowed to come out of the shadows, register, get a work permit, continue their studies. And so, más de 600,000 jóvenes lo han hecho, pero todavía hay otro millón
They're not aware, no saben lo que está pasando.
que pueden solicitar eso, porque creen si dejaron sus estudios que no son elegibles. No es así. Si graduaron de la preparatoria, son elegibles, o si regresan a meterse en un GED program para tratar de seguir sus estudios, son elegibles.
So, cada 2 años hay que renovar el proceso de la aplicación.
Sí, justamente ahora están dando la solicitud para renovar porque este programa apenas comenzó hace 2 años.
So after 2 years, that individual being here in the United States could renew that process?
Yes, every 2 years they can apply again, and in almost every state except Arizona, they can get
Arizona, here we go.
they can get a driver's license and a Social Security card, and the Social Security card is their number for lifetime, but it says they're only authorized to work if they have an immigration permit.
Okay. Claudia, welcome here.
Thank you, gracias.
Explica la historia cuando sus padres fueron migrantes.
Sí.
¿Qué te animó a la familia a llegar aquí a los Estados Unidos, que tiene mucha oportunidad en los Estados Unidos aquí para nosotros?
Bueno, desafortunadamente el país de donde vengo es de Uruguay y en ese tiempo había muchos problemas políticos que todavía existen en muchas partes, que es una de las razones por que nosotros, muchos emigrantes, venimos aquí para encontrar esa tranquilidad para nuestra familia. Yo tenía 4 años cuando vine y viví como unos 10 años ilegal hasta poder. En ese tiempo la inmigración y las leyes eran muy diferentes y creo que hasta más fáciles que lo que están sufriendo nuestros padres ahora en tratar de ver cómo
Mejorar la vida.
y mejorar sus vidas económicamente, políticamente, en muchas maneras. Entonces nuestra responsabilidad como distrito escolar público es poder apoyar a esas familias y a esos niños para que se eduquen aquí. Y gracias a la educación que yo pude obtener, que quizás no lo hubiera obtenido en Uruguay, realmente.
¿Y te enfocas tú, Claudia, en qué en el departamento del distrito escolar de dependientes hacen? ¿Qué es lo que haces?
Yo trabajo contigo, Mycah. Trabajo con todos los especialistas, son 72, y trabajo con los PTAs en todos los aspectos de apoyar a los padres.
A explicar al público, Claudia, ¿qué es especialistas de padre? Porque padres dicen, ¿especialista me da un examen o qué es? ¿Qué es un especialista?
Que no nos dan exámenes, pero quién sabe, Mycah, con tus ideas. Los especialistas de padres existen para hacer eso, para apoyar, educar, dar recursos, como los recursos de que ustedes van a hablar al ratito. Todas esas cosas son las cosas que necesitan nuestros estudiantes para poder seguir adelante académicamente, ¿verdad? Porque inmigración, vivienda, la salud, todas esas cosas impactan, ¿verdad?, a nuestros niños en los salones. Entonces, los especialistas de padres, de apoyo de padres, trabajan y existen para poder hacer eso, para poder abrir las puertas de la escuela, abrir las relaciones como con Paul, que tenemos nosotros, con recursos.
So a parents and sports specialist focus on
resources, education, leadership, to make sure parents are educated and understand that the school belongs to them, right? And that they have a say in what their children should learn and how and when. And so all of that, it's critical to have a parent support specialist in order to open the door, in order to guide, in order to listen to.
And build those relationships with the community, like Paul would go out there and build the relations. And Juan, bienvenido. You were actually a product also of AISD, of a child being in Galindo.
Yeah.
And were you at the time with Ms. Maya was there at that time?
Yeah, I believe she was there at the time.
She's here, and she just wanted to say that thank you for being here. This is what we see. As a parent support specialist, as a community leaders, what challenges did you had coming to the United States?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, and it was for my whole family, is learning English. It was a new language to us. I never had encountered the language. So I guess that was my biggest challenge coming here. The teasing that went on, trying to speak it. So I guess that was my biggest challenge at the beginning.
So, ¿en qué te enfocas hoy?
Hoy estoy estudiando en la Universidad de Texas.
¡Yeah! Un aplauso, ¿no? ¿Qué te animó? ¿Qué te dio la energía para animarte para seguir la carrera?
Me animó mis padres, mis hermanos. Mis padres dejaron su pueblo, dejaron su familia para darnos un mejor futuro. y ellos me animaron a estar aquí, a echarle ganas y a hacer lo mejor que puedo, porque dejaron su familia atrás, dejaron todo para darnos un mejor futuro, y me acuerdo que al principio no quería venir, pero me han dado todo lo que pueden, todo lo que han tenido, así que ellos es la razón por la que estoy luchando, por la que estudio, por lo que cada día me levanto en la mañana para ir a la escuela.
Con ánimo. ¿Se estás enfocando en una organización entre la universidad?
Sí, en la universidad estoy en una organización estudiantil que se llama University Leadership Initiative. Trabajamos con los inmigrantes, con los estudiantes. Muchos de nosotros somos indocumentados, así que estamos ahí luchando por nuestros derechos y los derechos de nuestras familias. Ahorita vamos a tener una clínica para lo de DACA. Y siempre estamos tratando de ayudar a la comunidad, vamos a las escuelas, a las preparatorias para enseñarle a los estudiantes que puedan asistir al colegio, que hay estas oportunidades, especialmente aquí en Texas, donde el Estado nos deja que paguemos a niveles estatales y no out of state o niveles internacionales. Así que eso es mucha ayuda para nosotros. Y queremos que todos los estudiantes aprovechen esto, que nosotros aquí como indocumentados tenemos esta oportunidad.
Sí, gracias por eso. Paul, as one becomes a citizen, and during the process, what's the lead time of that individual sponsor a loved one in their household? I mean, what's the process?
Well, a U.S. citizen can sponsor, if they're over the age of 21, a father, mother, spouse, or child. If the child is married or over 21, there's a very long waiting list. They can also sponsor brothers and sisters, but there's a terribly long waiting list. We're talking it could take 30 years or more. But let's say someone came from Mexico undocumented.
Okay.
And he's married to a U.S. citizen and they have 2 U.S. citizen children. Under the current laws, they would have to ask for a waiver, un perdón del castigo de 10 años. Y solamente si ganan eso, tendrá que regresar a su país, al consulado de los Estados Unidos, y solicitar la visa. Es muy difícil si entró sin papeles. Y si una vez regresó al velorio de su madre o algo, y regresó segunda vez, no se puede solicitar perdón. We need laws that work to unify families. But if that's how hard it is for the husband of a U.S. citizen, father of 2 U.S. citizens, you know our immigration laws are broken. That's terribly difficult.
So during the process that you sponsor the individual, the household, that individual cannot go to the foreign country.
Well, if they go, and they need to stay gone, because if they come back a second time, they're not even going to be eligible for a waiver. But most people don't even have that remedy because they don't have a U.S. citizen spouse that could attempt to sponsor them. Another example is we're seeing more and more children that were born here that are U.S. citizens. When they turn 21, yes, they can petition for mom and dad. But if mom and dad got here with no papers, mom and dad would have to return to the home country, have that 10-year penalty where they'd have to stay gone for 10 years, and you can't get a pardon based on hardship to U.S. citizen children.
And that's what separates a family and the whole community.
These laws are dividing families every day.
We talked earlier, and I talked to you through the phone and everything. It's the Future Without Violence organizations stated this. It says, like all women, immigrant women that are high risk for domestic violence. It's a very high percentage because they tolerate some of this stuff when they come here because the individual partner could use that as pretty much as a weapon because they're undocumented. What laws are there for those individuals that are dealing with domestic violence?
There are 2 good ones. One is the Violence Against Women's Act, and it could also apply to a man. But if someone's been physically or emotionally abused and could show that, and the spouse is a permanent resident or U.S. citizen, then they can get to a safe place and get away from that environment and self-petition for immigration. And they wouldn't have to go back to their home country or have this 10-year penalty. And the other type of remedy is called the U visa for certain victims of crimes, usually crimes of violence where physically or emotionally someone's been mugged and assaulted or raped and robbed. They can try to apply, if they cooperate with law enforcement and they're willing to be a witness and help investigate and try to prosecute that crime, they can try to get a temporary visa and eventually convert that to permanent resident status. So there are some remedies for people that have these types of situations.
Explico, estamos hablando de que a veces que llega uno aquí en los Estados Unidos como mujer o pareja, la violencia doméstica es muy alta en la mujer o el hombre también. Y que le estoy diciendo, ¿qué leyes que se aplica en los Estados Unidos para que cada persona tenga también derecho y se puede quedar en los Estados Unidos? Y me explica usted que hay procesos, pero hay leyes para proteger a la gente que está en violencia doméstica.
También para sus niños,
Okay.
si fueron abusados.
Si soy una madre o un padre que está abusivo domésticamente, violencia, hay leyes que me dan derecho para estar en los Estados Unidos también.
Sí, para la mayoría.
Okay. And Claudia, we see all that. I mean, as part of the whole Department of Parent Support Specialists, we see that, and it's very key for us to educate ourselves to the resources are there. And I'll ask in the audience, if you want to ask any questions to our guests here, you're welcome. Raise your hand, and because this is about learning. This is a very critical conversation, but also educational question that it's a very important. We talked about veterans because there's something going on with veterans. Explain to us, Paul.
Yes, this is wonderful. It's so new, most people have not heard about it, but if someone fought for our country, if they were in any branch of the armed services, or so they're active duty or a veteran, they can now petition for permanent resident status. First, they get something called parole in place. It's a permit to be here. And then permanent resident status for their mother, their father, their spouse, and their children, even if they're here undocumented. So this is huge, that they've decided if they fought for our country,
right,
los veteranos
sí,
pueden solicitar para unificar su familia, sus familiares, aunque entraron al país sin papeles.
But they have to be veterans here, right? They're resident here, and then their family lives in Mexico, whatever country. They have that privilege to apply those.
Yes, usually the relatives are already in the United States. Many are here, they got here with no papers or they fell out of status. Entonces, eso es un gran beneficio nuevo.
So, entienden explicando de los veteranos del programa, porque la gente no se da cuenta hasta sino al público, los anuncios, que las leyes van cambiando. And we hear that from our neighbors, friends, is that the law is this, and that's what we're here today, to just clear some stuff, that myth that people say, this is what I heard about immigration laws, and that's why it's so important you to have in here, just showing us and coaches what other resources are there. And also for violence, if you are dealing with violence, any kind of shape or form, you can call 911. You can call the safe place that we have here, and this is anyone, because violence happens. It could be a male or female. It's just not, where the percentage is high in women, but I think there's also men that are in silence, the domestic violence involved with them.
And people should go to an approved agency like American Gateways. Casa Marinela is a refugee shelter. The Catholic Charities and the Bernardo Kohler Center, they're all approved by immigration authorities, the government. But they should be very careful not to go to someone who gives false hope, because many times an immigration lawyer explains to people, based on your situation right now, there's not a remedy. We need this big immigration reform. They don't want to hear that. So the first person that says, pay me thousands of dollars, they'll pay the money because they just want to believe. They pay for these hopes and dreams, and they're just taking their money and they disappear. It's horrible.
Claudia, how value is a key for parents' engagement on their child's dream as we come here? And we're born here or we come here?
Mycah, mi mamá limpió casas por 30 años. Mi papá salió de la escuela en 4º grado. Pero cuando ellos me hablaban a mí, era todo de ir a la escuela, aunque no sabían una papa que estaba pasando en mi escuela, es la verdad. No podían ayudarme con mi tarea, nada de eso. Pero mi mamá decía, no quiero que limpies casas como yo.
Sufrimiento,
quiero
¿verdad?
que tengas una educación, quiero que seas algo. Y el poder, como dijo Juan, ¿verdad? Que tus padres fueron los que te motivaron, los que te guiaron. Las escuelas pueden hacer, los especialistas, los abogados pueden guiar, pero el poder de los padres es tan grande. Y quiero que todos los padres sepan que yo me acuerdo de lo que decía mi mamá cuando tenía 5, 6, 7 años.
El sufrimiento como padres que vienen, y eso es lo que a veces cuando uno viene a los Estados Unidos, pagamos dinero para venir a este país de una manera, el sufrimiento. Llegamos aquí y es todavía seguir ese sueño, padres. Es importante, no se alejen de sus hijos. En la secundaria es cuando estamos más enfocados los padres. Dicen, no, pues que a veces quiero que tengan su tiempo privado. No, enfocarse. Yo digo todo el tiempo, sufrimos, sea cualquier cultura, vinimos a este país, hay que seguir ese sueño de educación. We struggle coming here to this it has so much opportunities, and it does. But we come here and we struggle from foreign countries. It could be Mexico, wherever you come from. We get so comfortable and we don't follow our dream. The purpose to come here is to have the dream to advance our child's education. And that's why it's so key that parent engagement, it's important, the role of that to advance your child's dream. And Juan, I mean, what would you say to a child that is struggling right now academically or their dream? What would you say in your words?
I just keep trying because eventually you'll get there. I know school might seem difficult at times. You might seem like you don't get a subject. But if you keep trying, you eventually find what you're looking for. You eventually find the answer. I know I was in the same struggle trying to figure out what my major was going to be. And I'll say I still am. And I know it's difficult. And I guess for students to just know like about math and science, and it seems difficult to them. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is it's gonna get difficult at times. It's gonna be a lot of work, a lot of late nights, but to keep trying, because eventually you'll get to a point where you'll see, well, you'll be at the top of a mountain and you'll see all the hard work that you put into this, and you'll be thankful not just to yourself but to your family that helped you get there, and to the parents to always support their children, because I know that my parents were the motivation that, like, the reason that I'm here now.
¿Me lo puedes seguir en español porque están buenas las palabras?
Que a veces es muy difícil. A veces hay noches días que un estudiante no va a saber, no entiende ciertas materias, ciertos temas, y obviamente va a estar ahí llorando a veces. Pero al final de todo tenemos que seguir luchando, seguir esforzándonos, ir a la escuela, porque luego vamos a ver, ya cuando tengamos todos nuestros logros, vamos a ver todo lo que hemos logrado, y le vamos a agradecer a nuestros padres y a los padres que nos apoyen, porque sé que mis padres fueron mi motivación y la razón por qué ahora estoy aquí en la posición donde estoy. Así que los padres que ayuden a sus hijos y los motiven, cuando los vean que están estresados, que ahí estén a su lado.
Qué importante es ser voluntario, Claudia, en la escuela de sus hijos. Pues ser voluntario, un padre.
No, mi mamá como no hablaba, mis padres como no hablaban inglés, no entendían. Pero la presencia de mi papá en mi escuela o la presencia de mi mamá en una conferencia con una maestra, aunque yo traducía para mis padres, le dio la presencia de mis padres, aunque ellos no entendían, le dio valor a mi experiencia, porque sabía que, wow, esto debe ser un lugar importante, sí, porque aquí están mis padres. Sí. Algunas veces nuestra presencia es muy, muy importante, que nuestro hijo nos vea. Comer conmigo. Me acuerdo mi mamá, entre medio de limpiar casas, venía a chequear a ver cómo andaba. ¿Te falta algo? Sí. ¿Necesitas? Esas son las memorias que tengo. Entonces yo sé que también valorizaba donde estaba. Entonces los mensajes que nosotros podemos dar como padres con nuestra presencia, con nuestras palabras a nuestros hijos, son muy importantes.
So the value of being a volunteer as a parent.
Of being present, right? Whether it's volunteering to do something or just coming to check on your child or to see how they're doing or to pick them up, walking into a school. You know, my biggest nightmare is when parents are locked out of a school. Mm-hmm. Please call my office if that happens, because it makes such a big impact to just walk your kid to a classroom, to be present, to be there. Mm-hmm. We need that. We need parents to be there. So
well, I think the way the schools, I see the schools as a business corporate. And and I see it this way, a child is an investor. And so the child, we as leaders, we have to give the information because it's an investment. And that's what corporate people work pretty much. It's an investor. And so you take care of the customer. Not that I'm saying the customer is always right, but customers they want information. They want that product. So as educators in the public sector, we have to take care of that investor. That's that business that we have.
And another thing that parents can do is get involved in the politics of immigration. Cuando vamos a tener manifestaciones, tienen que venir con la bandera de los Estados Unidos, con sus hijos y todos unidos. Y también pueden mandar cartas a senadores, representativos, porque la mayoría de los ciudadanos de los Estados Unidos entienden que ya es hora para una reforma a estas leyes que no funcionan.
So, Paul, if I'm here and I don't know where to go, where do I go? I mean, besides 311, where do I go to talk about immigration?
Hay un sitio web que me gusta mucho que se llama Justicia para Inmigrantes.
And we'll have that.
.org. Justiceforimmigrants.org. No .com. That's a rip-off site. Pero eso es de los obispos católicos y ellos sí entienden que necesitamos esta gran reforma para darnos un camino, un sendero, para por lo menos conseguir un permiso para trabajar y andar aquí sin miedo. Y más después la residencia permanente y algún día la ciudadanía. Eso es lo que necesitamos.
So, what resources are there for people that want to know more about immigration?
Well, at the public library, they have a wonderful kiosk to help immigrants. There's the American Immigration Lawyers Association. There are the agencies that have been approved that I mentioned, Catholic Charities, American Gateways, Bernardo Kohler Center. Those are the three big ones. Wonderful. Casa Marianela in Austin. But be careful. Don't just pay for false hope and go to notarios públicos.
Because there's a lot of that right now going on.
Yes,
I know that.
They're not authorized in the United States to give legal advice. This is a complex area of law. People should be aware and not lose their hard-earned savings on people that will make false promises.
And that happens. Before we start closing up, Juan, do you want to say anything before we start closing our
if people want to get involved with immigration, there's many organizations out there. One of us being us, University Leadership Initiative, we always welcome people to come learn about how they can help immigrant students. There's also Texas United for Families, which is involved with grassroots leadership. They have an awesome program that goes out to the Huddle Detention Center, which is a detention center for women who are seeking asylum. The majority of them are seeking asylum. So they go and visit them and kind of give them support. There's also another organization, Austin Immigrant Rights, which works a lot with the community that's affected by these laws. So there's many organizations that people can join and go find more information.
Thank you. Claudia, one closing remark or anything to share to the parents or the public?
No lo podemos hacer solos. El distrito escolar necesita la voz de los padres para poder lograr que nuestros hijos salgan adelante. So we can't do it alone. Right. We need the parents with us in order for children to
like
be successful.
we say in the show, you are the driver of your child's bus. En español, ¿cómo lo decimos?
Usted es el chofer del autobús de su hijo.
De su hijo, es verdad. Paul, any last remarks or any information that you want to give us to us?
Ojalá que este año o el año que entra al fin nos van a dar una gran reforma migratoria, porque necesitamos un camino para más de 10 millones de personas aquí sin papeles. Hopefully, Congress has to do something because there's over 10 million people that are building our communities and they're integral in our communities that don't have papers. And many of them are parents of U.S. citizens and they need to have a way to legalize their status.
We want to give a round of applause to our guests, Paul Carson, Clara Santa Maria, Juan Beltrán, por favor. It takes 12 years for a child to get a diploma. But did you know that it takes minutes for that child to drop out of school? Welcome back to the Eagle Talk Show. Bienvenidos al show de las águilas. Leer es importante, ¿verdad? Did you know you're all going to get at this show, everyone from here, courtesy of HEB and Community Keys, you're going to get books to take to your child. How about that? We want to welcome here our guest, wonderful guest. We continue the topic about we come from different countries, immigration reform. We talked about everything and beautification in the city. Because when we come here to United States, beautification is the key. That's part of a dream. And so today we're going to have wonderful guests talk about services and organizations that are providing services for you as the parent, as the guest, to make sure that you have service to health issues. We're going to talk about that, the Affordable Act. We have Jill Ramirez from Latino Healthcare Reform.
Healthcare Forum.
Forum, there you go, okay. And we have Dan Cardenas from the City of Austin, Code Compliance, right?
That's correct.
And we have Ms. Reeves. You're probably also with us in the City of Austin. Thank you very much for being here today. Jill, as we're dealing with the Obama healthcare plan, there's a deadline for people that are coming here in the United States. You know, I'm an immigrant. I don't have health services or insurance. What do I do?
Well, right now we're at the point where we're letting people know there's a month to sign up, which is the deadline is March 31st. And so when we started our campaign in October 1st, we were really going out into the community and explaining people what people knew about Obamacare. But we feel that at this point, a lot of people have heard about it. I think a lot of people understand that it's affordable care and how do you get into the insurance marketplace. And so for us being here, and we thank you so much for allowing us to be here, because we're going everywhere. Any place where they will have us, we're going to be there letting people know.
It's building relationships with the community, and that's
absolutely, and letting people know that they have until March 31st for the enrollment period, because it may end, which means that if you don't get in to have health insurance, and health insurance can be if you already have Medicaid, if you already have Medicare, if you already have insurance through your CHIP, insurance to your employment, you're fine. But it's people who do not have health care that have to enroll. And if you're legally here, whether you have a legal permanent residency or you have a visa, there's all kinds of visas. Or then you have to apply and see if you qualify for the marketplace and see you have a tax break, because it's really affordable for the first time. Okay. And so for us, it's really, we feel like we're running out of time. So,
explícame en español para el público.
Sí, yo me llamo Jill Ramírez y trabajo con una organización que se llama Foro para el Cuidado de la Salud Latina. Y tenemos muchos programas, pero el programa que estamos ahorita enfocándonos es que ya se va a acabar el periodo cuando uno puede inscribirse para tener seguro médico bajo la ley que mucha gente que ustedes conocen se llama Obamacare. Ese periodo se acaba el 31 de marzo. Y si no entra uno, se tiene que esperar otra vez hasta en el otoño para poder entrar. Porque este seguro médico es como cualquier otro seguro médico. Sí. Tiene uno que aplicar cada año. Sí, cada año. Y mucha gente piensa que porque, bueno, yo no estoy aquí legalmente, no tengo que, y es verdad. Sí, y es verdad, pero muchas de las familias, y aquí están todas las personas que me están ayudando con este programa, ellos de veras son los que se hacen inscripciones cuando una gente va y ustedes les pueden ayudar.
Y gracias por estar aquí este día con nosotros.
Sí, y si tienen preguntas, yo típicamente ando afuera corriendo la voz sobre lo que es, pero de veras ellos son los expertos. Y lo que queremos es que aunque uno piensa que a lo mejor no va a calificar, lo que estamos viendo es que todas las familias son mixtas. En una familia hay personas que a lo mejor no tienen documentos, pero algunos sí tienen residencia, algunos tienen visa de trabajo y luego tienen niños que son ciudadanos. ¿Okay? Entonces, para nosotros es importante que lleguen a un lugar. Este es el teléfono de nosotros.
Y lo vamos a poner en la pantalla.
Okay. Pero si tienen preguntas específicamente es a su familia, porque ni una familia es especial. Sí. Todo depende de sus ingresos, depende del tamaño de su familia, depende de su edad, depende de dónde vive. Como por mí, una persona ya a mi edad, okay, es muy diferente a una persona bien jovencita. A lo mejor ellos necesitan otro seguro médico diferente. Todos los seguros médicos son según sus necesidades de esa familia. Sí.
Okay. Dan, welcome.
Thank you.
We're immigrants who come here. What is the expectations as a city ordinance? So what is it?
The biggest expectation for the city is to enjoy it.
To enjoy it.
To enjoy it, to be a part of it, to take care of it, and also to take care of it for our community, for our children, para nuestros niños. I think what happens many times is there's a sense that the regulations that are difficult. They're not difficult. I think part of what we do in the city is we don't want to be going and punishing people. No queremos castigar a nadie. Lo que queremos hacer es trabajar con la comunidad. Es lo que queremos hacer. Y la más importante cosa que podemos hacer es dar información en cómo vivir en Austin. It's a beautiful city.
Está creciendo.
Está creciendo tan rápido también.
Venimos migrantes, diferentes culturas, y es educar, como de salud, educar los derechos que tiene uno, vive en su lugar. Ms. Reed, welcome. What are the guidelines if I have a neighbor that is not, it just came to the United States, has a car in the park and in the driveway, whatever. I mean, what information you give them to them to be aware of those guidelines or those policies?
The City of Austin has a lot of codes that have been put in place, or rules and regulations, just to make sure that our city stays clean and healthy and safe for everyone that comes here. Like Dan said, we want this to be a wonderful city, a community where everybody can be happy and they can enjoy life. But we all know that sometimes you have that neighbor that parks their car in the middle of the grass, and so you can always call 311 and report this problem. And what our department does, the Department of Code Compliance, the Departamento de Código, is we'll go out and investigate. We have inspectors in each of the different areas of the city, north, south, east, west, that'll go out and investigate the problem and educate the community on what the different rules are.
One of the things that maybe one of you could answer, one of the things that I deal with, because we're in the community also, is where immigrant families come here and the landlord is not following being compliant. So what is the outcome of that?
Well, first of all, the first thing anybody should call is 311. Again, I think the important thing is that we are here to come back and protect the community. That's part of this. We want to make sure that it's safe to go into a building and you can reasonably expect to come out and enjoy your time in that building. But you also have, I think that 51% of the people that live in Austin live in rentals. So it is really important, es muy importante tener programas que puede assist the renters to come back and communicate with us when something is not healthy.
Porque eso es lo que pasa, Dan, que uno de diferentes culturas, inmigrantes vienen aquí, y estamos luchando porque queremos hacer nuestra vida más mejor, ¿no? El sueño, y tenemos con los dueños de nuestro lugar, no arregla el apartamento, no arregla las ventanas, no estamos de acuerdo, eso es lo que está pasando en la ciudad. So, ¿en qué manera está la ciudad, como digamos, ponerle a presión?
Nadie aquí en Austin debe de vivir sin agua caliente o con chinches o con esos problemas peligrosos de la casa. Entonces, si hay cualquier de esos problemas, habla al 311 para que nosotros podamos ayudar.
Porque la salud es importante.
Así es.
Going back to la salud, Jill, what's the process? How do I file? I mean, to get, we have a deadline.
Yes.
So
well,
maybe one of your groups could answer that question.
You know, when we started the Latino Healthcare Forum, we just felt like there was really not a group addressing Latino health. And we were seeing these huge numbers of people with obesity, heart problems, diabetes, high blood pressure. And we know that unless you have access to health care, you're on the road to developing those diseases. And so we started the Latino Healthcare Forum. And one way to really look at those diseases is to access health care. And the best way to access health care is to get insurance. Now, we were hoping that the Medicaid expansion would occur, which that meant that a lot of other people who didn't qualify before for Medicaid would also qualify. So that would allow people to go see a doctor. And so right now we have that people can call their number. There's also healthcare.gov where people can go into, but I only tell people if you have a computer at home, if you feel comfortable using the computer.
Sí, porque no todos estamos en teología, ¿verdad?
Sí.
En Facebook, etcétera,
Sí,
etcétera.
pero ahorita cuando salganos por allá tenemos unas bolsas con mucha información de un mapa donde están todos los lugares donde uno puede ir a ayudar, a encontrar ayuda. Puede uno encontrar ayuda hablando con el 18 número que tiene el gobierno. Hay aquí personas que nosotros estamos trabajando con una compañía que es local y es non-profit que se llama Sendero. Entonces, ellos pueden ayudar a esas personas, no tienen que ir a otro lugar, sino pueden, aquí están antes de que ellas se vayan, si a ustedes tienen preguntas.
Pueden preguntarle, si me permite, voy para el
Sí,
público.
por favor,
Luego,
para el público.
me dice su nombre, ¿se pone de pie, por favor?
My name is Angelica Noyola.
So, ¿en qué organizaciones puedo, como dice Jill, mi hijo nombró Sendero? ¿Qué es el proceso para aplicar si puedo cualificar yo?
Well, if you want to get help through Sendero or through the Latino Healthcare Forum, we do have information in the bags. You call the phone number. We'll set you up an appointment with an enroller so you can come in. We'll tell you exactly each item that you need to bring with you so your process does not take a long time. And we will walk you through the process because the computer, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming for individuals. But we'll walk you through and we'll make sure that we set you up with insurance that is affordable for you and for your family and make sure that everyone that qualifies for the insurance is able to get coverage.
So what if I get denied somehow? What's the outcome? And there other organizations, for some reason, maybe the process or the application was challenging? Because I hear that sometimes there was an error in the application. Where do we go from here?
Well, when you reach an error in the application, there are a few glitches that are still there. We can help you call online through the telephone process, and sometimes that will get you through directly, and we can get your insurance set up. There are individuals who would qualify for Medicaid expansion had Texas agreed to do that, but because there's no funds available to give that Medicaid to them, they will be listed as being exempt. They would have gone through the services. They've done what they're supposed to according to the government. So when it comes time to IRS going and giving tax, fines, they will not have to pay those fines. But it is very important that they walk through the process. There are individuals who will qualify for the regular Medicaid. There are also families who have children that would normally have never applied for Medicaid thinking they wouldn't be able to get it. But when you enter your children's information, it will let you know if they qualify for CHIP or for Medicaid. And there's also the MAP program available.
Oh, there you go. Just because you stood up right here, Chuck E. Cheese is giving you a family coupon, so please. Anybody else? Alguien, una pregunta. Señor, ¿su nombre, por favor?
Mayra López.
Okay. ¿Es padre o qué hace usted en la comunidad?
Yo soy promotora de salud y soy por medio de Latino Healthcare Forum. Ellos tuvieron un entrenamiento, nos entrenaron. Ahora estoy ayudando a la comunidad. Estamos yendo mucho a todo el valle, las áreas rurales en Dove Springs, para informar a la gente sobre estas oportunidades que hay en la comunidad. ¿Dónde es donde se pueden inscribir con nosotros? Si no califican con nosotros o no están aquí legalmente, les estamos recordando, sus hijos están aquí legalmente. Si no calificaban para Medicare o CHIP, ahora van a calificar y el sistema les va a decir. Tenemos familias compuestas desde gente que no tiene papeles, unos son residentes, los niños son ciudadanos. Entonces les estamos ayudando a llenar una aplicación donde se pueden sentir seguros que su información no va a llegar a manos de otra gente.
¿Qué es lo más difícil que la gente tiene problemas a recibir los servicios? ¿Qué es lo que es que no tienen la información?
Correcto, la información se me hace que eso es lo más difícil. Mucha gente no sabe de esta nueva reforma, dicen, yo no aplico. Hay mucha gente que incluso en sus clínicas piensan que por tener tarjeta de clínica o tarjeta de MAP ya están cubiertos, y no es así. Si ellos califican para tener una mejor aseguranza donde les van a dar muchos más servicios, es mejor aplicar. Entonces lo que le estamos diciendo, si usted tiene una tarjeta de la clínica, está aquí legalmente y sus ingresos son lo suficiente para calificar para estos nuevos créditos en las taxas y aparte para subsidios, donde hay gente donde sus visitas les está saliendo $10 cada vez que van al doctor, en vez de cuando tienen tarjeta de clínica que tienen que pagar cierto porcentaje. Entonces es nada más darles la información para que puedan ir y educar a la gente.
Gracias.
Para poder
¿Tiene familia usted?
Claro que sí.
¿Niños chiquitos?
Sí.
Usted se ganó un car seat parte de Dell. Ok.
Muchas gracias.
Otra más pregunta. Una pregunta, pase. De pie, por favor, levántase. ¿Su nombre?
Beatriz
¿Y es
Santiago.
padre de escolar de Austin?
Sí.
Okay.
La pregunta no es para mí, es una compañera del salón, que ella no vino. Ella es residente, tiene 3 años de ser residente, es una señora ya grande, se llama Josefina. Ella dice que ha aplicado para Medicaid, para MAP, para todo, y no le dan ninguna aseguranza. Entonces yo quisiera saber para ella qué es lo que puede hacer, dónde puede ir, porque ella necesita la aseguranza, una aseguranza médica, porque su esposo es diabético y ella ya es mayor de edad. Entonces ella necesita la aseguranza.
Y ahorita se la vamos a contestar. Gracias. Se ganó también usted un boleto de Chuck E. Cheese. ¿Ok? Jill, ¿quién me la quiere contestar?
Claro que sí, mire, mientras las personas sean desde recién nacidos a 64 años, califican para entrar al mercado. Después de los 65 entran ya lo que es Medicare. Pero lo que nosotros estamos haciendo, nosotros le podemos ayudar a la señora a llenar su solicitud. No importa si tienen diabetes, si tienen cáncer, si tienen cualquier tipo de enfermedad o que tienen niños especiales, toda la gente, no importa la condición física, entra al mercado.
Y le vamos a poner todo en la formación, en la pantalla,
claro
para que la
les
gente
pueden
se comunique.
hablar y nosotros les hacemos una cita y les ayudamos a llenar la inscripción. Nuestros servicios son totalmente gratis.
Todo se puede, ¿verdad?
Claro que sí.
Gracias.
Todos pueden entrar.
Gracias. Tenemos una pregunta para el público también si está rentando, quiere saber qué son más información. Si usted está rentando, tiene una duda, si quiere preguntar, aquí está la oportunidad. Si no, me voy a regresar acá. Y Jill.
Si quiero reconocer a una persona.
Está bien.
Quiero reconocer a una persona que está aquí porque ahorita sabemos que estamos en el último mes y que hay muchas personas que todavía no han tratado o han tratado y a lo mejor el sitio de internet no estaba funcionando y ahorita todas las organizaciones juntas estamos haciendo lo que dice last minute push to get everything going.
Vamos, gente.
Y Alfredo Santos, ¿te puedes por favor poner en pie? Él trabaja con Enroll America, que están haciendo caso menos lo mismo que nosotros y él está aquí también para poder apoyar a nosotros. ¿Quieres decirle alguna cosa, Alfredo?
Deme para allá ahorita, para el público, si me permite. Muy breve, porque vamos en tiempo.
Nada más quiero recordar a todos que tenemos nomás un mes, porque termina el programa por esta pausa el 31 de marzo, pero infórmense, hay muchas oportunidades para conseguir aseguranza y estamos dispuestos a ayudar a todos.
Alfredo, gracias.
Gracias.
Un aplauso, ¿no? That's what we see most of the time, Jill. You know, there's the communication, the process technology, you know.
Y para decirles la verdad, para nosotros como estamos trabajando primeramente con la comunidad latina, sí hemos visto que el gobierno federal planeó muchas cosas, pero planeó para la gente que habla español, que es medios poquitos más mejores que nosotros y como que no planeó muy bien para la comunidad latina. Y es donde nosotros queremos ayudar a la comunidad latina para que cuando empiece otra vez, vamos a suponer que algunos de ustedes dicen, no, bueno, voy a pagar la multa, que es $95.
¿Cada año?
Es primer año, el primer año. O 1% de tus ingresos. El año que viene va a subir y el otro año va a seguir subiendo. Lo que nosotros queremos es seguir trabajando con ustedes, porque para nosotros como foro para el cuidado de la ciudad latina, queremos que no haya ya más diabetes. Queremos que no haya obesidad porque la gente latina se está muriendo más pronto que otros grupos.
So explain that to the English to others.
Okay. For us, it's really important within our Latino Healthcare Forum is to really focus on the Latino population and other minority groups, because we have the highest rate of obesity, the highest rate of
disease.
HIV.
And
well,
all that,
they're called chronic diseases.
Yeah.
And there's 4 that the state recognizes and the Center for Disease Prevention recognizes. And so what we want to do through having health insurance, you working as hand in hand with your partner, doctor, you can decide, you go to screenings, and in a screening they'll tell you, oh, your sugar is up, your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure is high. And then you work together to figure out how to decrease that. Because right now the studies show that people who are Latino, who may not have a very good job, they're outside working all the time, wasting their bodies physically, they're the ones that are dying younger.
Right. Dan, what are we doing at the organization as a city? What are we doing to continue educating the community? Are we going out there? We're doing what are we doing?
Yeah, the important thing is to do that. Is to get out into the community. We've worked with Dove Springs. I think the challenge we have right now is to get beyond a fear factor. We want people to call us. We want 311, llame 311. And what that does is it allows us to come back and work with the tenant, and primarily it's the tenant, okay, that we're looking at, to have the owner of that property do what they should be doing anyway.
And most owners live, I would say, maybe I'm wrong, and you can correct me by calling the Eagle Talk Show, and I'm willing to challenge that. Most of the owners probably live out of the state.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do. But the important thing for us right now is that if you don't call us, this is a big city. We don't know that it's there. Podemos ayudar.
So what's been the challenge? Is it intimidation, or what is it?
I don't think the challenge is so much as the intimidation, is the appearance that there is going to be intimidation. We have rights. Tenemos derechos. Those have to be protected. And I think what we do is to come back and make sure that those structures are in accordance with the code. If they're not, we're not saying that somebody reported something wrong. We're saying that structure is not correct.
We actually brought some of our inspectors with us here,
And
just so you can see them.
Here.
We have
I know
Hilda and
Mr.
Manny,
Manny's here,
and so you can see their uniforms.
And I think as it's important, the education, health issues, the beautification of the city, because we're growing. It's the fastest. I think the top is 10 city nationwide is just growing, and so it's important to gauge our community, the awareness of the salud. Give them that information, the beautification, because as we come to this country, there is guidelines, there's rules, and some of us do not understand because of the challenge of the language barrier that we have. And so I encourage organizations to reach to those communities and to those languages. I mean, we have now several languages. I know at Walmaker we have about 15 different languages, and it just keeps changing and growing. So it's very important that us as leaders of community and organizations to go ahead and, tap into those resources. And how do you communicate? It's very important to communicate with it.
And to establish partnerships with the city. Like you said, the challenge sometimes is so many different languages that in turn it's hard to come back and have one easy thing for everybody to learn. But we work together, we can do it.
And so do you have forums and events coming up in the spring?
We try and have ourselves at lots of community events. If anybody wants us in their neighborhood or at a community event, we're happy to send our inspectors out, or we're happy to go and put a table at your community events. And
most of your stuff is a little bit bilingual?
Of course, yes. Okay. And I also want to say that, there is that fear that there's going to be retaliation, or that if I call 311 and we're going to get kicked out of my apartment or something like this. Anybody can call anonymously. Pueden hablar a 311 anónimo, totalmente.
You had a question. Before I go to that question, maybe we could be brief because we're going out of time, and just say what you can stand up with us.
Well, she touched on one of the questions I had. How are you getting out to the community that you can do this anonymous? Also, are you making sure that you're reaching them to let them know that not only are we concerned about the safety in the home they live in or a car parked on the lawn per se, but the safety around them, such as fences that are unsafe and other buildings that their children will be in contact with? Is there a large gamut that you're following, not just focusing on where they live?
Our codes right now, if I was to look at them, they're divided into three basic things. They're looking at the structure, whether it's dangerous or not being maintained and falling. It's looking at nuisance complaints, grass too high, fence leaning, things like that. And the third one has to do with zoning. And that has how you use the property. If you're out there fixing a car in the backyard, having some kind of other activity that is bringing the neighborhood down, that is what we kind of concentrate on. That is the focus of it. But we also have a larger one. We look at, there's businesses that are starting to come inside the middle of residential areas, short-term rentals and things like that. What we're trying to do is allow that to occur without impacting the surrounding community and bringing that down. And I think the other thing that makes it really difficult for us sometimes is, how do we get out there? We're doing everything we can, go to neighborhood meetings and so forth. We're going to start developing a report on a quarterly basis that'll be available to neighborhood associations, English and Spanish, to allow some of that information to be going out there.
And
But
that's
the other
very
ones,
key because what I call it Autobús para Aprender is an educational bus. And us as organizations should go into different organizations. We go to the citizens living assistance areas. We go to the public housing. And I encourage all organizations to do that because we in our Department of Parent Support Specialists, we do those forums and collaborate with other agencies because I think it's not all the time, I believe, and estamos de acuerdo, not all the time that people are going to come to us, to our organization. Am I correct? No todo el tiempo la gente no va a venir a nuestro lugar, es que ir al lugar de ellos, and that's why it's so very key. And so any policies that are affecting around or pending before we start wrapping up our show, Dan, anything, Ms. Reed, any policies that are people are it's more common that they have the missed or they don't quite understand in rules?
for me, the biggest one is that if you're building something, get a permit, un permiso. Okay, I think many times when you come from another area like Mexico,
because venimos de otro país y no necesitamos permiso. Permiso mi lugar, ¿cómo se va? Si tengo mi lugar, no está pagando taxes.
Es mío, ¿por qué no lo puede hacer? You know, all that comes in. But the reason for these rules is so, let's take a public building. If I go into a public building, I should feel that I can go in it, be safe, enjoy it, and come out. That's a reasonable expectation. In a residential area, if I go and I buy a house, I don't know what the guy did before me on that house.
True.
And I want to make sure that house is safe for me to live in with my kids. Health starts at home. Yeah. So we want it as healthy as possible.
La salud es importante. Jill, anything?
Well, I think that health is the most important thing in your life. And I know, I have 2 master's degrees. I know people that have
Can I borrow one
PhDs. I know people who have PhDs. And but when the health is bad, that goes out the window. And I have an example, Steve Jobs, who, he invented Apple computers, he invented iPhones, and when his pancreas gave out and he didn't really take, a good care of it, he passed away. So for me, it's yes. And what you guys are doing is part of what we look at in health, is the social determinants of health. Anything around your environment
because it starts at home. We talk about different topics of bullying that starts also at home.
Yeah.
Health starts at home. The beautification starts at home, and that's why I have you here today because it's part of that transition from immigrants coming here and whatever culture might be. Is you come to this beautiful Austin is grown, is beautiful, has a lot of opportunities. You just have to go and find those opportunities. But we have to be compliant. Also, some of things compliant to our health.
Yeah.
Tener salud es bien importante.
You have to take care of your own health. Right. But nobody else is going to do it for you.
Not only that, but there has always been proven connections between crime and grime.
Yeah.
And for our children, there's an old saying that says we do not inherit the earth, we merely borrow it from our children. Okay, so what we need to do is maintain it so our children can come to school, can come back and develop well, and have better opportunities than we had.
True. So I want to thank you all for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. And like I say, remember, you are the driver of your child's bus. Usted es el chofer de la educación de ese autobús, de sus hijos. Thank you very much for being here. Jill, Dan, Ms. Reeve, thank you. Un aplauso. I want to thank you all for being here.
Your heart is